Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. A rare Tuesday Prem slate on our agenda here. Three gamer on three game slate just because of DK's decision to not include this slightly later Chelsea Southampton game. I've talked about in the past that I like when they do that. There's more time to build having all the lineups here instead of having to wait for these Chelsea game lineups. And also, I think it's better just because this slate would be just a lot, I think, more gross if it was Chelsea Southampton with all of these kind of even games. It'd make it make you feel like you'd have to kind of stack that Chelsea game just because they're the biggest favorite. So instead, we've got like this three gamer here where every game is plus odds for both teams, can really go either way. And I think that makes the build a lot more wide open and just a lot more people who are more in play. In terms of projected lineups and set pieces for Wolves, it should be mostly Cunha. I thought Nori would have a larger split than he did last game, but we even saw Cunha taking like outswing corner kicks, which you never really saw from him before. So like I give a little bit more of a bump to Cunha and a little bit slight decline for Nori. I still definitely like them both here though. And then for Fulham, Pereira should start and should have Monopoly, I want to say, if in. Lukic has taken a lot without him. I feel like Pereira's kind of the guy there. And he really should play because of that Smith Rowe injury. Brighton and Bournemouth should be Minte Monopoly, I want to say, in this team. Ayari has split in the past, but last game we saw Minte take on this typically righty in-swinging side. Like Minte is just taking lefty outswingers too. So Minte is in a super interesting spot here. Of course, if we see like Gruda or Matt O'Reilly in, they'd have priority over Minte. So that's just one thing to watch out for. For Bournemouth, it should be Brooks and Kluivert splitting. It's interesting they have no Lewis Cook starting. And if you don't know about Lewis Cook, he will split if he's playing in the midfield, and if he's playing right back, he takes nothing. Just strange unwritten rule that Bournemouth seem to have. For example, Lewis Cook started last game in the midfield slot. They then got an early red card. Lewis Cook moved to right back, and then Kluivert ended up taking what would have been Cook's sets the rest of the game. So just super strange. Crystal Palace and Aston Villa should be an Eze split with Will Hughes. There's a chance that Eze ends up having a monopoly, though. Chance that Warden ends up splitting. So the only for sure things Eze should take something. For Villa, it's interesting they have no Marcus Rashford. I don't really get that at all. Like I feel like he just has to start because he's just been so effective whenever he's gotten the field, whether that be for 60 minutes or off the bench. Last game, they ended up subbing him on. So I feel like he's due for a start now for this midweek game, just out off of just normal rotation. But if he doesn't, it should be Tielemans and Digne splitting mostly. Maybe McGinn takes something. And if Rashford does split things or start, that things get a little bit uncertain. He ended up having set pieces off the bench last game and took the game he started before then. And if he started, I just think he'd split with Digne or McGinn, and then Tielemans would end up being the guy who kind of has a smaller role. And then there's Marco Asensio too, who has priority over both Digne and McGinn, but he went 90 last game, and this is a midweek slate, so I just feel like he'll probably be the one they rotate out here, and that's probably why he's not in projected. All right, prices. Cunha at 10K. I can't say I'm not tempted by that. He's just on just fantastic form. He's got a great floor to him, tons of upside. Like there's really not a whole lot wrong I can say about him. The one thing that I will say worries me slightly is that it is a tougher matchup against Fulham. Fulham are a possession team as well, so he might not get as many floor points or the opportunity to get as many floor points. But like I said, like he's got so much upside that it's very tempting just to get to him anyway. Like I like Cunha a lot at 10K. Watkins 9,200. He's safe for minutes, if nothing else, typically. Did get subbed early last game, but you'd assume that is more anticipation, knowing that they had this midweek game. Since John Duran left, they just don't have a ton of depth at forward, despite having all these super attacking wingers. So Watkins should be safe for minutes. I don't know if I'd go him over Cunha is the thing. Like I'd rather have Cunha if they have pretty even matchups, which they do. Like Wolves plus 160, Aston Villa plus 170. So almost identical in terms of the odds. But pretty decent GGP play, I'd say. Clivert at 9K feels a little pricey to me. And like Bournemouth are getting a little bit more healthy in terms of attackers. And that just makes him not as safe for minutes as he has been. I think I forgot to go over. Like Brooks should split with Clivert or Cook, whoever starts. And also if Tavernier starts, he'd be the one splitting as the lefty option. Semenya feels a little bit pricey. Mateta, GPP play, sure. Minte. I like this as a cash play. He should have set pieces as long as we see no Gruda or O'Reilly. I have to make sure I emphasize that because it goes from like a monopoly set piece taker to a guy who takes nothing, depending on if one of those guys are in. I don't think it'd be surprising at all if they end up rotating one of those players just because this, yeah, like is a midweek game. Like there should be some rotation with them at some point. They've had a ton of midweek games in a row, whether that be through FA Cup or EFL Cup or Prem. So because of that, like I just keep an eye out. But otherwise, if none of those guys are in 8,400, that is a great price for Yakubu Minte here with the monopoly potentially. Adama feels a little pricey to me. Ouattara, same thing. Rashford, I love this if he started. He's looked so good in his limited minutes for Villa. Like he's putting up just super solid numbers here. 17, 8, 19 since he signed for them, all in below 70 minutes. So I'm getting to this 100% if he starts. That is probably a core play, depending on if he plays or not. So I'm all in here on Rashford. That's my favorite forward play on the slate. Other guys I'm considering, like João Pedro is cheap at 6,600. He seems like he's kind of healthy now. Where they kind of were pretty cautious with him as he was coming back from injury, but he looks fit. He scored a goal against Southampton and got an assist for that matter. So João Pedro, I like that a lot at that price. This is cheaper than he's like ever been, I think. Yeah, he has not been sub 7K. And on a slate here where there's no big favorites, this is just wildly underpriced here. So João Pedro 6,600, I think that's a fantastic play. Asensio, if he does start, I think could be tempting. Really had that breakout game last game, has set pieces. I think that's a solid option as well. Other guys I'm kind of tempted by. Sar at 5K seems like a pretty decent forward punt. Same with Reuter. Like those are just nice value plays. Same with Strand Larson. Like I said from the beginning, that there's a ton of ways to go for this slate and really a ton of options just from every game. Midfielders. 94 Eze is just the first name I see here. Feels a little pricey. I know he's been solid, but he's kind of been a little bit lacking in upside lately since coming back from that knock that he had a few games ago. But in terms of the floor, like you can have no complaints here with an 11 or 13. You just are really hoping for a goal contribution to kind of pay off that 9,400 price tag. And like I think that I could see this Villa game being a good bounce back spot. This game could be pretty end to end. So there is an argument for an Eze. I think it's just whether you want to spend that 9,400 salary, which can be pretty steep when he's competing with kind of bigger upside guys, I think, in that price range, like Minte and like Cunha. But like I said, I have no issues with Eze here. Tielemans feels a little bit pricey to me. I don't think I'll get there even in cash just because he is a guy with such limited upside, especially if Rashford is in. So I'm probably staying away from that. Tavernier feels a little bit pricey too for a guy who we just don't really know what they're going to do with his minutes. He went 90 last game, but I don't know if that's a guarantee, especially coming off of an injury and being a midweek game. Mitoma's not bad at 7K. Pereira I like a lot at 6,900. They're running out of kind of depth. Like Pereira was getting subbed a lot, but a lot of times that was for Smith Rowe. And without him, that's a lot less competition. They're also, of course, missing Harry Wilson, who's been injured. Reese Nelson, of course, has now a long-term injury. So I really like just getting to Pereira here. I think he'll just go 90 minutes, should have Monopoly. And I think he's basically is like Eze, but for 2K cheaper is kind of how I see him. Other guys, Sarabi at 5,400 doesn't seem bad if he plays. Marshall Munetsi, I had quite a bit in GPP last game, and I'd go back to him here for sure. He's only been priced up slightly, basically playing as a number 9 for this Wolves team. I think that's a super solid play as well. Big gain at 4K if there's like no Dinier, no Asensio. Should have sets in that situation, and that could make him kind of tempting. Well, Hughes at 3,900 is kind of a whatever play. Ayari, I'm just a little bit scared of because he didn't have any sets last game. Garuda, if he started, could be kind of tempting as well. Look at that, 9 points in just 10 minutes. No, I know he got that assist to bump him up a bit, but he's been solid. And if he just goes like past 70, he usually drops a pretty good score. Of course, that's just not always likely with the amount of attacking talent that Brighton has, and it feels kind of like he's one of the guys outside looking in. Bailey at 3,800, I mind is an upside punt. Lukic, if there's no Pereira, he's just who you go instead. Like these are the kind of uh numbers you get from a Fulham set piece taker. They always have monopoly, whether that be Pereira or Lukic. And I like that even more than Pereira just because he's cheaper. So good play if there's no Pereira. Otherwise, not really thinking about him. Lewis Cook at 3,700, I think is fine if he plays at center mid. Let me make that clear. If he's at right back, avoid for me. These are his right back numbers, just not great. And that's all I will kind of pick out here for mid. Defenders. It's a semi-rough defender slate. No real set piece takers other than Digne, who you worry about for minutes. Even then might be worth just risking that because of the defenders on this slate. But other guys, like there's Andy Robinson, who just has cooled off a little bit. Only 6 points last game, in where you'd think he'd have a ton of flow and just you'd think he'd go off of this kind of game at home to Crystal Palace down 2 goals, but just didn't really get there. Hasn't gone there 2 games in a row in favorable home matches. So I'm a little skeptical on him, especially considering he keeps being priced up despite not performing. So if you have the salary, I mean, sure, I don't mind it, but otherwise, this just feels like a pricey play to me for a guy who seems to be on the downtrend. Munoz. Got that goal last game, but he just was not great for floor. He would have had like 2 points. Less than that. He had a goal and a clean sheet, which add up to 15, and he had under 15. He would have dropped negative if he hadn't gotten those things. And that scares me a little bit for a fullback. But you just don't really see getting goal contributions that often. I know he's had 3 in his last 4, but that just does not seem sustainable to me at all. And you're looking at like 6s, 5s, and 7s when he's not getting those goal contributions or having a clean sheet, both of which I think are pretty unlikely against Aston Villa. So yeah, I don't love Munoz here. Lamptey, since he's kind of lost his 2 games of sets, don't love him. Estupinian, if he's somehow healthy, what do they say about him? Available. If he ends up starting, that could be a super tempting play. I just don't see how he'd not have priority for sets over Minte. I think he'd probably take, and that'd make him super tempting. That's just one thing to keep an eye out for. Mitchell, if he's a little bit pricey. Dinier, like I said, you can get there. It's just scary for the minutes, and 5,400 is not cheap at all. But I don't think he's crazy. Like I could get behind Dinier for sure. Nori, I'd play that too. Upside wing back potentially. He's similar to your Mitchells and your Munoz's, just for 2K cheaper practically. So, and there's an off chance that he ends up having set pieces too. So yeah, I like an Nori play here as well. Those are kind of the big guys I like. Like there is Sameda who is fine at 4K. And then you're kind of looking at, oh yeah, then they finally fixed Andres Garcia. He's been like an 8K forward for like 4 slates in a row. Finally made him a 3KD. This is fair. The worry there is that Matty Cash is healthy now, and they'll probably end up splitting mins a decent amount. But at 3,600, that's not a bad play for sure. And then looking at CB punts, like there's Bueno, I don't mind. Diop, I don't mind. Just play kind of whoever fits your builds, whether that be through pairing with a goalkeeper that you already have, or a set piece taker with these center backs, hoping for a goal for a set piece. But there's not anything super eye popping at defender. Goalkeeper, as always, it is an absolute crapshoot, especially on a slate like this, where every game basically is a 50-50. All the goalkeepers are priced similarly too. If you're looking for an edge here, I'd say maybe try to pair a goalkeeper that makes sense in relation to the rest of your build. Like if you're already stacking a team, maybe go the goalkeeper on that team, hoping for like a 3-0 scoreline or something. Or if you have a bunch of attackers from like the same game, avoid playing a goalkeeper from that game just because you expect it to be like 3-3. But yeah, like I said, it's just a crapshoot at the end of the day. Like goalkeepers like that on the best of days, and honestly, like this, where every game's so tightly competitive, it's just really just luck at the end of the day. All right, in terms of a core, I think this is a tough slate just because there's really a lot of ways to go. Like I said from the start, but I'd go Pereira, Rashford. I'd go if he starts, and then Cunha or Minte. There's a high chance I end up just 3 forwards in cash since I like all these guys so much. I'll go Minte for now. I'd probably start my builds like that. If we see no Rashford, I might even just go that. Cunha, Minte, Pereira. But there's definitely options here. As usual, guys, make sure to check out the FSI Discord, link through the website in the description below. And I'll see you for the next one. Peace.